Have you ever looked at a website and wonder how developers place elements exactly where they want them to be? Maybe you have seen maybe floating button or sticky navigation bars, and you wonder how these developers were able to position these elements exactly what they want them to be. How did they do that? Today, you are going to learn the secret. Welcome back. In the last lesson, we learned how elements behave using display properties. Today, we are going to learn how to control where elements appear on the page. And this is huge step towards becoming a front-end developer. CSS positioning is about controlling the placement of an element within a web page. You see, without positioning, the browser decides where things go. But with positioning, you gain control. You can override the normal document flow. Every HTML element starts with a default position. The default position is static. Position static. That's always the default position of every HTML element. We are going to do an example here. Let me just clear this. Let me also clear this. Let me come back here and I'll be using only box this time around. So now, okay, I'm going to create different box here. I'm going to call this box 1. I'm going to create another one. I'm going to call this box 2. Very simple as this. You see the two boxes are there now. Now in my CSS, I'm going to target this box together, right? Because all of them have the same class, so they are going to be targeted together. Background color light blue, as you all know, that's what I love. I prefer using in this course. And now I'm going to say padding. I'm going to give it a padding 20 pixels. I'm also going to give it the margin. Don't forget, I say margin is a space outside of the element. You can see what padding did here. Padding add a space between around of the element, inside of the element. Now we are going to use padding to add a space outside of this element so that it will look good. You can see what I just did. Padding is one adding space outside here. Margin, I mean, is the one adding space outside, while padding is the one adding this space inside. Now, what is happening here is that the browser is placing everything naturally. No special positioning is happening here. Browser is just placing it naturally. So you see, most of the websites you will build, they will spend most of their time in normal flow. But with positioning, we are going to take control over how we want these elements to position themselves. Now we are going to go look at the first one, which is relative positioning. Relative positioning allows an element to move from its original position. For example, I'm going to give you a simple example of that. Example here, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to say position. I will just say relative. You can see nothing changed here, but with relative now, we have given this element to be able to move away from its original position. The element actually moves, but it still keeps its original space. Now, relative positioning moves the element visually, but the original space still exists. That's what relative positioning is doing. For an example now, with relative positioning, we can do things like it will give us the power to do things like top, and I can just say 20 pixels. You see what is happening? Let me give it 50 pixels so that you see how it's moving. You can see. Let me say 100. This 1000. Let me say 100. You can see the kind of space I have at the top. I can come here. I can say right. I can do something like 30 pixels. That's what is happening. I'm pushing it by the right hand side. I can still do the same thing left. Let me remove right. Let me use left. You can see I'm pushing it to the left hand side. Let me change this to 60. That's what is happening. This is what relative positioning is helping us to be able to do. Without relative positioning, we will not be able to change this position. For example, what I mean is that if I remove this position relative, I will not be able to do all this because I don't have the power to change position. But if I give position relative, now when doing applying all this left, right, or bottom, or down, all this will happen, right? You see, it's bottom, not down. So we can just do bottom. We can still do something like 20 pixels. You can see you will not be able to see that now because there's already space a lot at the bottom of it. That's why I just use top. But you see, as I move the top now, you can see the bottom is happening. The element, the content is shifting to the upper side. You can see this is what relative position relative is helping us to do, is helping us to achieve. We are changing, moving this element, positioning it wherever we want it to be. At this point, you might be wondering, why would I use relative positioning? Because relative positioning is the foundation of positioning. That's why you need to use it. Sometimes you are going to be in a situation whereby you want to manually shift an element to be in a particular place you want it to be. That's where relative positioning comes in. You give it the left, shift it from the left side, you shift it from the top side. You continue adding numbers, shifting it until it gets to the exact place on your web page you want it to be. That's why relative positioning is very, very important. Now, the second one we are going to look at is the absolute positioning. You are going to be using this a lot, absolute positioning. This is where many beginners get lost. Absolute positioning removes an element from the normal document flow, meaning the browser no longer reserves space for it. To be able to see an example of this, I'm just going to create a container here. Let's remove this. Sorry, let's remove this. Let me just do this. And let me call it container. Now inside here, I want to have another div. I want to call it badge, yes. And I want to say this badge, let it just be new. Then I want to have an image. To explain this absolute positioning very well, we need to have some content. That's why I'm doing all this. I want to have an image. Hope you all remember how we normally add image. When we add image, let me just close this first. When we add image, we also have add a source to specify where this image is coming from. I've actually forgot the image I have here. We have an image called classroom.jpg. So let's use that, classroom.jpg. Don't forget we need to also add the auth. Let's just say class. Let us call it classroom image. Don't forget I also showed you something we can do here in our image, a style we can add here to make our image look good. We are going to do that in our CSS. So maybe we should give this image a class, or let's just target it without giving it a class. Let's just target the image element. We are going to just do something. We say object field contain. Then let's give it a width and height. Let's just make it look good. Let me say 300 pixels. You see, this is just what I want to do. Let me give it a height of 300 pixels too. You can see with this now we can continue with what we are there. I just want to position it properly so that we understand what I'm trying to explain here. Now, coming back to what we are trying to explain here, which is absolute behavior. We want to know how to can position our elements using absolute. Now, if you look at this, the first one I have here is container. Inside this container, I have a badge and I have an image. Now, the first thing I want to do here is to target this container. I'm not going to be using this anymore. So I'm just going to say container. And my container, which contains everything, is going to be a position of relative, right? We're going to leave our container as with the position of relative. Then we are going to come down to our badge, which is this new you are seeing here, which is this new that you are seeing over here. So now we're just going to say dot badge, right? Now the style I'm going to add here is position absolute. Now after we add an absolute position, we're going to go further into doing top 10 pixels, right 10 pixels. You see what happened here? This is what happened here. Look at where our new is now. Our new now is displaying here. You see, if I do this now, this image is taking this full side. Why this side here is different? We can also continue by doing something like background color. We can also say background color. Let me just say red. You can say color white. So that text will be white inside the red. Then I can say padding. Now, when the first one is up and down, don't get yourself confused. If I do this together, the first one is up and down, the second one is left and right. Instead of doing padding left, padding right, padding top, padding bottom, we can just do it together like this. This first one here represents up and down. The second one here represents right, left and right. That's just something you should take note of. So you guys, what I've done here, I've changed this to a button, to look something like a button, and let it just be at the right side. One thing you should know is that this badge sits on top of the image. Maybe you're not seeing it, but if I remove specifying this width, you're going to see it. You can see. You can see what I just did here. This badge now is sitting on top of the image. That's what the display absolute help us to do. The display value, that's what the display absolute help us to do. It clears every other default positioning and give you power to position content wherever you want it to be positioned. That's what the display absolute is all about. It helps us to position our elements beside the nearest positioned parent element. That's what this display absolute will be doing. And we are going to be doing a lot of display. Sorry, I've been saying display absolute. What I mean is positioned absolute. We are going to be doing a lot of position absolute in our website. And the main reason I put this position relative here is because this display value always positioned himself closer to where the parent element is being positioned. That's why I did this first, so that this display absolute now will position itself closer to it. Let me explain that more to you. You see, if the parent has position relative, the absolute child position itself inside that parent, just like that. This absolute child now will position itself inside this parent. So if you come back to here, this batch is already inside this element, right? It's already inside this element. But what I did here is gave this one relative and I gave this one absolute. So this absolute now position itself on top or inside of this relative. If that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. As we keep building, you are going to learn more. I'm going to understand more of what I'm trying to explain to you now. Just like this, you can see this one now. Everything here takes a position relative, but when we give this an absolute, it comes on top or inside of this parent element. That's just what I'm trying to explain to you all. Now we're going to talk about fixed positioning. Now, just like the name implies, fixed positioning. I know you already have a little idea of what it's going to be all about, but let's still go into it. Fixed positioning. Now I'm going to create something you see every day. I'm not going to clear this. I'm just going to add another div here. Let me just add another div here, and let me call it button. And I'm just going to say click. I want it to have all the style here again, so I'm just going to do dot button, just like this. I want it to have everything this batch have. Now we're not going to do position absolute in this case again. Let's just remove the absolute position. You see, now that we remove the absolute position, you see where it just went back to at the bottom here. Let me also remove this. Let's just leave it like this. This is where it's supposed to be, which is the normal position. Now, what I want to do here is I'm going to say position fixed. You can see when we do position fixed, you can see what just happened. It just stayed fixed at a single particular position without moving anywhere. I can still do something like bottom, just for you to understand. I can still do something like bottom like this. So I can say bottom 20 pixels. You can see where it moved to. I can also say right. 20 pixels. You can see almost the same thing. So what is happening here is that this element stays in the same place, but the page is moving. How is there is more content? When we keep scrolling at this, you're going to see that this element remains in the same place. For example, now I'm going to explain this better to you guys. Let me copy this. Let me put it one. Let me copy it like 3 times. 2, 1, 2, 3. Or let me add the fourth one, 4. Now look at what is going to happen here. Now I've copied this 4 times, but look at our click button. Our click button stay fixed the same place it is. It doesn't move. It just stay fixed at a particular position. That's what the fixed is all about. It just makes our element stays at the particular position. Even when the page is moving, when the content is moving, our fixed element remains in that position. That's what the fixed positioning is doing. Now I believe you have understand that. I'm just going to remove all this back. Our code look messy here, so I'm just going to clear all this. Okay, this is how it should be. Now we're going to look at another one, which is the sticky position. This sticky position now is very, very understandable and it's very, very useful. I'm going to be using it a lot of time, especially in our nav bar. Then we're going to get to our project. We're going to use this sticky position. We're going to see how important it is. Now let's learn this sticky position together. I'm just going to create a nav. Let me clear this, right? Let me just clear this and I'll create a nav. Now what I'll do in this my nav now, let me just create a simple nav bar here and let me say div, let me say home, let me bring another one, let me say about, just something simple. When we get to our project section, I'm going to be creating a nav bar. Let me say contact. Which other thing again is usually in the nav bar? What again? So let's just leave it like this and let me give this a class and let me call it nav, right? Let me just call it nav. Let's leave it like that. Then let's go to our CSS here. Let's clear all this. Let's target our nav and let's give it a background color just to be able to, as usual, let's give it our light blue so you can see this background color. Now let's give it sticky. Let's give it position sticky. Now position sticky. After position sticky, let's give it top 0, right? This top 0 is very important. Now something I want to show you about this sticky is very, very useful. If I come down here now and I create another element and let me say I call it hello, let me just use my logo. Do I have access to that? I don't have access to that. Okay, I have access to it. Login here. You can see I just have some text here. Let me do another one. Let me do again. You can see. Now I want to make this very, 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 very plenty, just to be able to explain this sticky to you guys. Now you can see what I just did here. I copied it so many times. Now look at the usefulness of this sticky. When I want to scroll through this, you can see what is happening. You can see what is happening. The nav there remains sticky at the top. The nav there remain positioned at the top. That's what this sticky help us to achieve. The nav there remain positioned at the top. Remember I told you that 0 is very important. Imagine you didn't put this 0, it won't work. You see, it won't work. So this 0 here is very important. It's top 0, making sure that the top is always 0. You can see this sticky now is very, very important in CSS positioning. Now we use this sticky most times in navigation bar. Just like I told you earlier, when we get into our project, when we are building a project, we are going to create a navigation bar where we want this navigation bar to always be at the top of our website. I don't know if you have seen websites. Let me show you the Vinco dev website. Very easy. Vinco.dev. I believe my navbar is also sticky here. You can see what I'm talking about. You can see how sticky this navigation bar is. That's what I'm talking about. That's one of the usefulness of using this sticky as a navigation bar. And many websites you are going to be building, It's very good to make your navigation bar sticky so that wherever the user is in your page, wherever section the user is, you can just go to navigation bar and click on something. So that's one usefulness of one real world cases where you will use sticky. Now, in all what we have been doing here, I believe you all have understand everything. The static is the default behavior. The relative moves from original position, give us the ability to move content from original position. The absolute remove from the flow. The absolute always remove from the flow, make being able to be on top of another parent element. The fixed position stays on screen. It doesn't change. It just maintain that position on the screen no matter where your scroll is, it still maintain that position, it doesn't change. While the sticky sticks while scrolling. So the sticky sticks at that position you set it to be, even when you are scrolling, it remains in that position. That's all what we have learned today, and I believe you all have understand CSS positioning. CSS positioning shouldn't be a confusion to you anymore. You all have understand how CSS positioning works. Now in the next video, we are going to be learning one of the most powerful tools in modern CSS, which is going to be the flexbox. Now, once you learn flexbox, building layouts becomes very dramatically easier for you. Now, this is where many students fall in love with CSS. When you start learning flexbox, that's when you are going to understand, that's when you're going to find CSS very beautiful and enjoyable. And I will see you in that next lesson.